Now, someone who knows all too well what Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor are going through is Kevin Garratt. He was held in China for 2 years, and similar to the two Michaels, his formal arrest came nearly 6 months after his initial detainment. And we've got Kevin Garratt right here in studio. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig probably can't be saying the same thing. Help me to understand what they are going through right now.
They're going through a lot of fear right now. I did when I was moved from what they call residential surveillance to the formal detention. You're going into actual prison. And, you know, it's not nice.
Now, they have been formally arrested. They have not been formally charged yet, but we know the accusations are about spying. So they are arrested, but not charged. Again, could there be a space, and was there for you?
There was. It was almost 8 months before I was actually formally charged. And so I sat in that prison for 2 more months after the 6 months of residential surveillance, which is what it's called.
Right.
It just means I knew nothing what was going on day to day. And then I actually sat in that prison for 19 months before I was actually deported.
Goodness. And in the prison, you and your wife were charged together. What were the conditions?
Well, the prison was, I was 14 in a cell, which was a good cell. Others would be 28, the exact same size. Food only comes about 2/3 of the time. You get little outside time. You're supposed to get it every day, but you don't. No privacy, limited conditions, very little space for yourself.
Violence, fear of violence, is that part of your daily mindset as well?
At first it was, but then I realized any kind of violence, and I did see some fights, are dealt with very, very quickly and very harshly. So there was a fight in the cell next to us. There was a couple of fights in our cell, but only minor, because guards come quickly and they're severely punished.
How much information were you getting? Sitting in that cell, waiting, hoping you would get some food that day, access to consular officials, access to information from within the prison?
Access to consular officials once a month for 30 minutes. Access to news, only the official CCTV News, which is the China state broadcast. And so whatever they put on there, most of it's meetings and, telling about China, and very little international news, and I don't think I ever saw anything about us on that.
We're trying to get into the mindset of Michael Kovrig and Spavor. I'm wondering, what would they be most afraid of right now?
Probably just the unknowing, the uncertainty of what's going on, because they have no idea what's really going to happen next, and which I didn't know either. I didn't know what they would do, how they could do it. I know, they threatened me with execution many times. I know that happens in China. I thought that could happen. And everything in China, you have to realize there's a 99.9% conviction rate. So, everyone, even if I met people there who I thought were innocent, they're guilty.
So do you have a mindset that it's hopeless?
Not hopeless. They're playing out because I don't know anything they did. I know we did nothing to deserve what we went through. And, it's like Prime Minister Trudeau says, arbitrary detention, arbitrary, confinement. And that's really what it was for us. They did this to get something else, and it's all obviously to do with Meng Wanzhou.
And we'll be watching to see what comes out of that. But what is it? If you say the situation was not hopeless, I'm trying to put myself into that situation of a cell, not sure I'm going to get food, worried about, being treated harshly, not sure that even if there is a chance at innocence, you're not going to get it because 99% of the time you're not. So what is it that gave you hope?
What really gave me hope was having my Bible with me the whole time, being able to pray and knowing other people were praying for us, and many, really thousands of people around the world, which I hope people would be doing today and continue to do that, and writing letters to the government and sounding a voice for them.
Was there hope that, the government would do something? We're hearing the Prime Minister say that Canada is going to make it known to China that this is not acceptable.
You have to do more than that. Obviously, it's not acceptable, but there has to be more substance to those words, I think.
Like
some action. I mean, I can't say what that action would be, but you have to do something more to demonstrate this is really important to Canada and Canadians.
Your wife was imprisoned with you,
she was,
correct? So where was she in this whole picture?
During the 19 months I was in the actual prison, she was on virtual house arrest. So the first 6 months was isolation, interrogation, exactly like the two Michaels. And then she was virtual house arrest, and I went to a prison of 900 inmates. Probably the same prison Michael Spavor would be in. If I knew the cell number, I could tell you exactly what he's going through.
The word interrogation gives me goosebumps.
It wasn't nice. It was hours every day. You never knew what was going on. It's not they're trying to say you're a spy. but they put everything together to say you're a spy, and they misinterpret things. We started a coffee shop. They say you did that to collect information. Well, we did that to serve coffee and have a business there. So everything is twisted and turned so that what is black becomes white, or vice versa.
And is it tiring?
It's very, very tiring because you have no access to anyone. You can't talk about the case, even when consular officials came, and they never came to the site I was, which is called a black jail. So they never knew where I was, where Julie and I were. But every day there's more and more, and they keep telling, we know what's going on. They threaten. They threaten you with execution many times. That does something to your mind.
Yeah, what does it do to your mind?
Well, fear that they would, and they could, because it happens in China many times.
So how do you wake up? How do you go to bed at night knowing?
You go to bed with prayer, you wake up with prayer, and you know that people are praying for you.
And as they're doing that, there's also the very real sense that something could happen at any moment. Was it a feeling of imminence, or was it a feeling of this could go on for weeks, months, years, and maybe that's a good thing?
I never had any idea how long it would go for, but the uncertainty of just not knowing anything from day to day really gets on you. For me, what I did was I just created routines in prison so that I could survive the day.
And it was down to that, survive and make it through this
Absolutely.
day. And tomorrow, did that come into mind?
No, I focused on the day, and this day I chose, this is what I choose. If I can eat, I eat. If I couldn't, I couldn't. And that's just the way it is.
You must have been worried about your wife as well. Was there contact?
Very little contact. Once I entered prison, once a month I would get some messages from family and from Julia, and on very rare occasion I would be able to see her for a few minutes.
So could we assume that Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig are getting words of encouragement from their families brought through consular officials perhaps?
I would hope so, that they are doing that. I think, and now it's up to the prison to decide that. Before it was up to what's called the Ministry of State Security, the MSS. So if they decide to give them information about their family, they could. But now the prison decides that, and the MSS doesn't have as much input into that.
And that's kind of the crossing of the line between detention and now formal arrest.
That's correct.
So the changes in who gives you information are important, I take it.
Yes, and it's very important to have a good relationship with the people in the prison, including the guards, including the inmates.
But how do you go about doing that? When you know you're there for all the wrong reasons, you are innocent, you're in this prison, how do you make nice, if you will?
You just have to be a nice person. You have to share with food. You have to buy everything in prison. If you don't have money, you can't survive in prison. So somebody has to put money on their account so they can live, so they can eat. But there's probably a quarter of our cell who would never have money, and so you share with people. You create relationships. You do what you would do normally as a decent human being.
What would you buy? What do you remember buying?
Not much. You can get, if there's food that day, you choose. It's just one dish. Sometimes, like in the summertime, it might be just cucumbers. That was the meal.
That's it.
That's it. And so, you choose to eat cucumbers that day. Some days we wouldn't even buy the food because you look at it and think, I'm not even sure what that is. I think they do what they can, but a lot of times, as I said, I figured out it was 28.4% of the time there was no food to buy. And the basics is you get a piece of what's called mantou, which is steamed bread, very tasteless. In the morning, you can also get a bowl of rice congee, sort of, but very just glutinous and tasteless also.
We are certainly watching this story very closely, looking for more reaction from Parliament Hill. From Andrew Scheer is going to be giving his comments on his economic policy. Perhaps he will speak to this latest situation, the breaking news of the formal arrest of the two Michaels. Let me ask you this one final question, though, Kevin. If you could pass on some information, and I know you're not going to get a message to Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, but if you could, what would that message be?
It would be to hold on to hope. For me, it was my faith I held on to every day. And, yes, it wavered, but I always came back to that solid rock of the Bible and holding on to faith. And we detailed that in our book.
You've got that there?
Yes, we have it here. So 2 Tiers on the Window, obviously available on Amazon and places like that. But it gives much more detail of what we went through, what we felt, the conditions, and the horrible things that we went through. But our hope was secure.
So that's the thing you would say?
Absolutely.
Hold on to the hope, no matter where you find it.
The officials who come have to give them hope as well. And just one last comment, maybe. One consular official who came quite often, she would say to us, and this was incredibly encouraging, I hope I don't see you again. meaning that it's over and you're gone. You're freed.
Are you well?
I'm well. I wasn't when I first came back, but I am now.
So glad to have you here, and thank you for sharing your story. And I do hope that message of hope gets through to the two Michaels.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Kevin Garratt, he was detained in China for 2 years, and we talked to him right here in studio.